The night I found my mate, he looked at me like I was nothing. Not with cruelty, not with anger. Just nothing. Like I was a stranger. Like the bond that was humming so loud in my chest it made my teeth ache. He couldn't feel it at all. Or maybe he could. Maybe that was the problem. My name is Mara Cole. I am 22 years old. I work at a bakery that smells like cinnamon and burnt sugar. And 3 weeks ago I walked into a room full of wolves, and the most powerful one in the room decided I wasn't worth keeping. His name is Caden Black. He is the alpha of the Ironwood Pack. And he rejected me in front of everyone. What I didn't know, what nobody told me, is why. What I really didn't know was that his younger brother Eli had been standing in the back of that room the entire time. Watching. Waiting. Already deciding something I hadn't even thought of yet. I wasn't supposed to be at the alpha gathering. Honestly, I didn't even know what an alpha gathering was until 48 hours before it happened. Here's the thing about being a late bloomer wolf. And by late, I mean I didn't shift for the first time until I was 20. 2 full years after every other wolf in my town. You spend most of your life on the outside of things. Pack events, celebrations, the quiet conversations that happen at the edge of bonfires, when the elders think the young ones aren't listening. I was always the girl who was almost pack. Not quite. My mom used to say it like it was a comfort. You'll find your place, Mara. You just take longer to bloom, like the winter roses. She meant well. But winter roses still get frost. So when Elder Teresa called me 2 days before the gathering and told me I needed to attend, my first reaction was confusion. My second reaction was panic. Why me? I asked. I'm not ranked. I'm not even officially registered with a pack. You'll understand when you get there, she said, and then she hung up. That should have been my first sign. The gathering was held at the Black Estate, a place I had driven past maybe 100 times, but never once entered. It sat on the far north edge of Ironwood territory, right where the old pine forest started to grow dark and close, and the road curved in a way that made it feel like the land itself was trying to hide something. Big iron gates, old stone walls, ivy growing over everything like the house was slowly being swallowed. I wore a plain blue dress. My hair was down. I had no idea what I was walking into. I smelled him before I saw him. That's the thing no one warns you about. The bond doesn't care about timing. It doesn't care if you're ready. It doesn't ask permission. It just hits. Pine and cold rain and something darker underneath. Like wood smoke at the end of autumn. I stopped walking. My heart did something embarrassing. And then the crowd in the main hall shifted, and I saw Caden Black for the first time. He was tall, obviously. Alpha tall, with broad shoulders and dark hair that was slightly too long. Like he forgot to cut it or didn't care enough to. His jaw was sharp. His eyes were gray-green, the kind of color you only see in deep forest water. He was in the middle of a conversation with 2 other pack leaders. He wasn't even looking at me. But the bond was screaming. I pressed my hand flat against my sternum like I could muffle it. I couldn't. He felt it 40 seconds later. I watched it happen. Watched his shoulders go still. Watched his head lift slightly like an animal catching a scent on the wind. Watched him turn. And then his eyes found me across the room. For one moment, just one, I saw something flicker across his face. Recognition, warmth, the same impossible pull I was feeling, reflected back at me. And then it was gone. His expression went flat. He looked at me the way you look at a door. Functional, forgettable. He turned back to his conversation. I told myself I imagined it. I stood at the edge of that room for an hour, pretending to look at the paintings on the wall, pretending to be interested in the buffet table, pretending I wasn't tracking his movements every single second. He never approached me. Which was fine. It was fine. Alpha males are proud. Maybe he needed time. Maybe I was supposed to go to him. I didn't know the protocol. I'd never been through this before. Nobody had ever. Mara Cole. I turned. Caden Black was standing 3 feet away from me. He'd come over while I was arguing with myself. Up close, he was even more. Everything. The bond hit me like a wave, and I had to actually grip the edge of the table behind me to stay steady. Yes, I said. Brilliant opener. His eyes moved over my face. Careful, studying. You felt it, he said. Not a question. Yes, I said again. He was quiet for a moment. Something moved behind his eyes that I couldn't read. Then he said, I need to speak with you privately. We went to a small sitting room off the main hall. Old books, a fireplace that wasn't lit. 2 chairs facing each other, like they'd been set up for exactly this kind of awful conversation. I sat. He stood. I know what you're feeling, he said. Okay, I said. And I want to be honest with you, because I think you deserve that. Something cold started moving up my spine. I'm not going to accept the bond, he said. The room went very quiet. What? I said. I'm rejecting it. His voice was even. Careful, like he'd rehearsed this. I know that's not what you want to hear. I know it's going to hurt, but I have my reasons, and I think… You don't know me, I said. He stopped. You don't know me, I repeated. We've never met. You don't know anything about me. How do you have reasons? He looked at me for a long moment. You're right, he said quietly. That's fair. Then explain it to me. He didn't. He just said, I'm sorry, Mara, and walked out. I sat in that room alone for a long time. The fire was still unlit. The bond in my chest felt like a bruise. I had just been rejected by my fated mate, a man who didn't know my last name, didn't know where I worked, had never once spoken to me before tonight, for reasons he wouldn't even explain. I was so angry I couldn't breathe. I was so hurt I couldn't move. I stayed in that chair until I heard the sounds of the gathering starting to wind down. Glasses clinking, voices dropping, the soft shuffle of people beginning to leave. And then someone knocked on the open door. Hey, said a voice. I looked up. He was younger than Caden, maybe a year or 2, with the same dark hair but lighter eyes, a warm brown instead of gray-green. Less alpha imposing, more like someone who actually slept at night. He was holding 2 cups of coffee. I figured you could probably use this, he said. I'm Eli, Caden's brother. I stared at him. I know what he did, Eli said, stepping into the room. I was there. He set one of the cups on the table near me and took the other chair. And I'm not here to defend him or explain him. I didn't think you should have to sit alone in an unheated room. I looked at the coffee. I looked at him. The fire isn't lit, I said. I noticed that, he said. A beat of silence. Do you know why he did it? I asked. Eli looked at his coffee cup. Something complicated crossed his face. Yeah, he said. Will you tell me? He was quiet for a moment. Not tonight, he said. Tonight you should just be angry. You earned it. I wanted to push. I wanted to demand. But something about the way he said it, you earned it, made the breath go out of me. I picked up the coffee. It's black, I said. I didn't know how you take it. Black is fine. We sat in the unlighted room, with the sounds of the gathering dying down outside the door, and we drank bad coffee, and he didn't try to explain anything, and somehow that was the kindest thing anyone had done for me in years. Here's what happens when your fated mate rejects you and you refuse to fall apart. You go back to work. You make sourdough, you smile at customers. You have entire conversations about the weather and which muffins are good today, and yes, we do have gluten-free options. And you function completely normally, except for the hollow ache in your chest that wakes you up at 3 a.m. and sits on your sternum like a stone. You pretend it's fine. You get very good at pretending. Eli came into the bakery 12 days after the gathering. I saw him through the front window before he came in and had exactly 3 seconds to decide how I felt about that. He pushed open the door. The bell above it rang. Hi, he said. Hi, I said. He looked at the menu board. What's good? The cardamom rolls, I said. And the coffee is better than what you gave me last time. He smiled. It changed his whole face, warm, unguarded, like he wasn't performing anything. Fair enough, he said. I'll have both. He sat at the small table by the window. He didn't have his phone out. He just sat there, drinking coffee, watching the street outside, with the easy quiet of someone who was comfortable in their own head. I watched him from behind the counter and tried to figure out what he was doing here. When the morning rush slowed down, I brought myself a coffee and sat across from him without asking. "Why are you here?" I said. "The cardamom rolls are legitimately excellent," he said. "Eli." He looked at me. "I wanted to make sure you were okay." "I'm fine." "Okay," he said. He didn't push it. "Is this Caden's idea?" I asked, "sending you to check on me?" Something shifted in his expression. "No, Caden doesn't know I'm here." "Does he know you were there that night, talking to me?" "Yes." "And?" Eli wrapped his hands around his coffee cup. "He doesn't understand why I did it." "Do you understand why you did it?" He looked at me for a moment. Honest, direct. "Yeah," he said, "I do." He came back the next Thursday. And the Thursday after that. Always morning. Always the cardamom rolls. Always that same easy quiet. We started talking. Really talking. Not about Caden, not about the bond, not about any of it. Just talking. He was a wildlife biologist when he wasn't doing pack business. He'd spent 2 years studying migration patterns in northern Canada and had opinions about elk that were genuinely fascinating. He was funny in a dry, understated way that snuck up on you. He asked me about the bakery, about how I'd learned to bake, about my mom and the winter roses thing, which made him laugh quietly. "She wasn't wrong," he said. "You did bloom." "Into what?" I said. "Something worth noticing," he said simply. I didn't know what to do with that. 5 weeks after the gathering, I was closing up the bakery alone when I heard a noise outside. It was probably nothing, a cat, a late-night delivery truck taking a wrong turn. But I'd been in the wolf world long enough now to know the difference between probably nothing and actually nothing, and this felt like actually nothing pretending to be probably nothing, which was worse. I went to the back door. Standing in the alley, looking like he hadn't slept in a week, was Caden Black. He looked different than he had at the gathering, less composed. There were shadows under his eyes, and his jaw was tight, and he was wearing a jacket that was too light for the weather, like he'd left somewhere quickly and hadn't thought about it. "I need to talk to you," he said. "You had your chance to talk to me," I said. "You chose not to." "I know." "And then you left." "I know." "So." He put his hand against the doorframe, not threatening, the opposite actually, like he needed the support. "There are things happening in the pack," he said. "Things I can't explain. Not safely. And when I found out you were my mate, He stopped, pressed his eyes closed for a moment. "I thought rejecting the bond was protecting you." "From what?" He shook his head. "I can't tell you." I stared at him. "You came all the way here," I said, "to tell me you still won't explain?" "I came to tell you it wasn't because of you," he said. "I need you to know it wasn't because of you. You didn't do anything wrong. You are." He stopped again. "I just needed you to know it wasn't your fault." He was looking at me with those gray-green eyes and the bond, which I had spent 5 weeks trying to smother under sourdough and cardamom and bad coffee. It was still there. Quiet, stubborn, refusing to be buried. "Okay," I said. "Okay?" "I hear you," I said. "Thank you for telling me." And then, because I was tired of being the one who didn't know things, "Does Eli know what's happening? In the pack, whatever it is?" Caden's expression flickered. "Why are you asking about Eli?" "Because he came to find me," I said. "After you left, he checks on me." Something passed over Caden's face that I couldn't name. "He didn't tell me that," Caden said. "No," I said. "He didn't tell me much either, but at least he showed up." 2 days later, Eli came to the bakery and didn't order anything. He just stood at the counter, hands in his jacket pockets, and said, "Caden told me he came to see you." "Yes," I said. "Are you okay?" "I don't know," I said. "Are you going to tell me what's actually going on?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Can you close early?" We walked to the park 2 blocks away, the kind with old benches and maple trees that were just starting to turn orange, and a pond, where someone had left bread for the ducks. Eli sat on a bench. I sat beside him. "There's a political situation in the pack," he said. "Has been for about a year. There's a faction, older wolves, conservative, territorial, who want to control who the alpha bonds with. They have a candidate picked out, a female from a strong bloodline who would cement an alliance they want." I stared at him. "Caden refusing to accept a fated bond," Eli continued, "is not him being cruel. It's him trying to protect you from becoming a target. If they knew he had a mate, a real one, fated, and that he was choosing her over their arrangement, you would be in danger, Mara, real danger." The ducks moved across the pond, slow, unbothered. "Why didn't he just tell me that?" I said. "Because telling you makes you part of it," Eli said. "Telling you gives them a reason to watch you. He thought if you were angry and the rejection looked real, they'd leave you alone." I stopped. "That's the most backwards protective instinct I've ever heard." "Yes," Eli said. "That's Caden." I looked at my hands. "And you," I said. "Why did you keep showing up?" Eli looked out at the water. "Because I couldn't stop thinking about you sitting in that room alone," he said. "And because—" he paused. "Because the way he handled it was wrong. Even if his reasons weren't. You deserved better than being walked away from with no explanation. And now you're explaining it." "Now I'm explaining it," he said. "Which means I've probably just made myself a target too." He said it simply, not dramatically, like it was a fact he'd already accepted. I turned to look at him. "Eli." "Yeah? Did you come here because of Caden? Or because of me?" He turned to look at me then. Full on. And his expression was open in a way that Caden's never was. No walls, no layers, no careful control. "Both," he said. "And then, somewhere around the third Thursday, mostly you, here is something they don't teach you in whatever informal wolf education you piece together, from overheard conversations and old pack texts. Fated bonds are not the same as chosen ones. A fated bond is something that happens to you. It's biology and magic and old pack law woven together, and it is real and powerful, and it absolutely cannot be faked. But it doesn't mean the person on the other end is right for you. It doesn't mean the timing is right, or the circumstances, or the version of themselves they are in that moment." Eli told me that once, on a Wednesday when he stayed until closing time and helped me wipe down the counter, badly, because he kept missing spots and then arguing that the spots were actually clean. "Your brother is my fated mate," I said. "What does that make you?" "Someone who showed up," he said. He handed me the cloth. "Someone who kept showing up." That's not an answer. It's the most honest one I have. I want to be very clear about something. I did not fall out of my feelings for Caden cleanly or quickly. The bond doesn't work that way. You can't logic your way out of it, can't brute force it with time or distance or really excellent baked goods. What you can do is let it coexist with other things. Other feelings. Other people. I still felt the bond when I thought about Caden. But it had gone quiet, like a song playing in another room. Present. Faint. What I felt when Eli walked through my door on Thursday mornings was something different. Warmer. More grounded. Not the crash of a wave. More like someone turning up a heat you didn't know was already there. It was a Tuesday, not a Thursday, which was the first sign something was off, when everything fell apart. Eli called me. His voice was different. "I need you to close the bakery," he said, "and stay inside. Lock the doors." "What's happening?" "The faction," he said. "They found out. About us. About me coming to see you." A pause. "They think Caden is using you to play both sides, and they're—" "Mara. Please just stay inside." "Eli, where are you?" "I'm handling it." "That is not an answer. It's the most I can give you right now." "That sounds familiar," I said. A beat of silence. "Fair," he said. And then, quietly, "I'm sorry. Stay inside. I'll come when I can." He hung up. I stayed inside for 6 hours. And then I didn't. The black estate was lit up when I got there. Not warmly, not the way it had been during the gathering. Sharp lights. Voices I could hear from the gate. The feeling of wolves in a heightened state, which is something you feel before you hear. A pressure in the air like a storm that hasn't broken yet. The gate was unlocked. I walked in. I don't know what I thought I was going to do. I'm not a fighter. I'm not ranked. I'm not impressive in any wolf world way that matters to people like this. I was a girl who made cardamom rolls and had a fated bond with the alpha, and had spent the last 6 weeks falling, slowly, quietly, stubbornly, for his younger brother. I was nobody, but I was there. They were in the main hall, a group of 7 or 8 older wolves, senior pack members, the kind who wore their authority like armor. Eli was standing at the far end of the room. Caden was beside him. The argument was already in progress. One of the older wolves, gray-haired, broad, voice like gravel, was speaking. The younger son has involved himself with a rejected mate, he said. A nobody, unranked, late bloomer. She is not a political asset, she is a liability, and if the Black family insists on... He stopped. Everyone turned. I had walked in. Eli looked at me like I had grown a second head. Caden's expression was unreadable. This is her? The gray-haired wolf said. Her name is Mara Cole, Eli said. His voice was very even. And she doesn't owe you an introduction. She doesn't belong here. She's standing in the room, I said. My voice came out steadier than I expected. So I'm guessing I belong here as much as anyone. The man looked at me with the flat contempt of someone who has never once considered that a girl from a bakery might not flinch. You have no pack, he said. No rank. No bloodline to speak of. You were rejected by the alpha himself. What exactly do you think you have to offer? I looked at him. I'm not here to offer anything, I said. I'm here because someone I care about was in trouble, and I wasn't going to sit in my bakery and wait. A beat of silence. Eli was looking at me with an expression I hadn't seen on his face before. Caden stepped forward. And here is the moment that changed everything. Not dramatically. Not the way it happens in stories where things shift suddenly, and the light changes, and the music swells. It was quieter than that. Caden looked at me, and then he looked at Eli, and something in his face settled, like a decision he'd already made was finally finding the right words. She is not a liability, Caden said. She is under the protection of the Black family, both of us. He looked at the gray-haired wolf. That's the end of this conversation. The faction didn't fall apart overnight. Caden spent the next 3 months navigating pack politics in ways that I was only partly briefed on, dismantling the arranged alliance situation piece by careful piece, making allies, calling in debts, doing the slow, unglamorous work of actually leading. He and we talked, really talked, finally. He apologized. I accepted it. It wasn't easy and it wasn't instant, but it was real. The fated bond between us didn't disappear, but it shifted into something else. The particular tenderness you feel for someone you almost had a different life with, someone you understand, even if they're not yours. Eli asked me to dinner on a Thursday, actual dinner, not bakery coffee. He was nervous about it in a way that was completely out of proportion for someone who had once faced down a room full of hostile pack seniors, and that made me love him a little more. You've been coming to my bakery for 2 months, I said. This feels like very delayed protocol. I wanted to make sure, he said. Sure of what? He looked at me. Honest, direct. The way he always was. That what I felt was about you, he said. Not about fixing something Caden broke. Not about pack politics. Not about any of it. He paused. Just you. I looked at him across the table. And? I said. And I'm sure, he said. I said yes to dinner. I said yes to the second one. On the third one, he brought me cardamom rolls from my own bakery, which shouldn't have been sweet but was, inexplicably, the most thoughtful thing anyone had ever done. You broke into my bakery? I said. Your employee Gemma let me in, he said. She's on my side. You have a side now? I've always had a side, he said. It just took a while for you to be on it with me. People ask me sometimes, pack members, curious outsiders, my mother, how you fall for someone when you're already fated to someone else. I tell them it's not as complicated as it sounds. A fated bond is a beginning, a door opening. The universe saying here, start here. But it's not the whole story. It was never meant to be the whole story. Eli wasn't my fated mate. He was something different. He was the person who walked into an unheated room with bad coffee and sat with me in the dark, who drove to my bakery on Thursdays not because anyone told him to, but because he wanted to, who learned how I took my coffee, black, always, and that I argued back when I was nervous, and that I showed up for people even when it was stupid and risky, and I had no plan, who looked at a girl that his brother's pack called a nobody and saw something worth showing up for. The bond I had with Caden was real. What I have with Eli is a choice. And every morning, when he walks through the door of the bakery, not just on Thursdays anymore, most mornings now, and the bell rings, and he's holding 2 cups of coffee, and he already knows I'll tell him one of them is wrong somehow, and he doesn't care. I choose it again. The end.